The number of COVID-19 cases jumped to over 30 in Barbados. Barbadians curfew compliant. No real issues reported. And in sports, changes being made to the BCA's intermediate and second division formats.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
And very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Newsnight. In our top story tonight, the number of COVID-19 cases in Barbados continue to rise, with that tally now at 33. That update from Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Anton Best.
At this current point in time, 16 of those are males and 17 of those are females. The majority of cases that we have are imported. 19 cases of those 33 are imported. 11 have been identified through contact tracing, and we're still investigating 2 of those cases. And that's out of a total of 287 lab tests that we've conducted over the last 3 to 4 weeks.
The Acting Chief Medical Officer also sounded a word of caution to beachgoers, telling those who are ill to stay home.
The advice to go to the beach and advice to do certain activities with the restrictions that are put in place do not include if you're ill. If you are ill, particularly if you have a respiratory problem, you have to seek medical attention. And the way that you do that is to call your regular healthcare provider to get advice. You can call a polyclinic when the polyclinics are open. You can call the hotline that has been set up to get advice as to what to do. So the advice about going to the beach when you had conjunctivitis, to be honest with you, I hadn't heard about that, but that's not very good advice. No one who is ill should be, especially with respiratory complaints, should be leaving their home and going to the beach.
From all indications, it appears Barbadians complied with the first night of the government-imposed curfew, which came into effect yesterday from 8 p.m. And Attorney General Dale Marshall has praised them for their cooperation. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
The curfew stipulates residents should be off the roads between 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. And when our cameras ventured out just after 7:30, only a handful were heading home. But when the clock struck 8, the streets were empty. From Wildy in St. Michael to Kinder Hill and Shernots in Christchurch, and even in 6 Road St. Philip, Barbadians were tucked away in their homes. In assessing the night, Attorney General Dale Marshall said there were no issues.
We've checked all of the various police districts. Of course, people will still have personal difficulties with which they have had to go to the station, but that's obviously not going to be considered to be a breach of the curfew. That's a legitimate exercise of your responsibility and duty. If there's an issue, you report it back to the police. We don't expect anybody to say, well, there's a curfew, so we're not going to go to the station. So that has been happening. That's more than reasonable. But Barbadians were by and large off of the road. There are 1 or 2 troublesome videos that we've been seeing on social media.
When the curfew lifted, many spoke about their experiences.
I'm a homebody, so that's no problem for me. I don't need to be on the road. Whatever I'm doing I could do it at home, so I'd rather stay at home. You know, it's to be safer. And right now, everybody dropping dead like flies. It don't make any sense trying to be a part of the problem.
Not a problem, because I'm always at home anyway. So it's not a problem.
I'm so glad I'm pleased with my yard. I could sit so comfortable because, you know, I'd be around all kind of people.
It wasn't really safe. So it was a safe day, so y'all didn't bothering me. So that's good. Get people off the streets early.
No. I'm usually home pretty early as it is.
And with some Barbadians moving around in the daytime, Mr. Marshall says it is important to practice social distancing.
We expect Barbadians, it's Sunday, supermarkets are open, pharmacies are open. We assume that people will go to those places, but we ask that you go only if necessary. Don't go to the supermarket because you want to get out the house and need a change of scene. Only go if it's necessary.
The curfew continues until April 15th, 2020. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Thanks, Rianne. Well, we're also hearing tonight that the Blackman and Gollop Primary School at Staple Grove in Christchurch was officially handed over to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital today for use as an isolation facility. This as government continues to build capacity to treat COVID-19 patients. Senior Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Arthur Phillips, said the Ministry of Health and Wellness received permission from the Ministry of Education yesterday to use the school for this purpose. Officers of the Barbados Defence Force worked all day on Saturday to clear classrooms and sanitize the building in preparation for the first patients. Dr. Phillips disclosed that 48 beds were currently in place at the new facility. The capacity, when the building is fully outfitted, will be 126 beds. The Chief Medical Officer said the establishment of this new isolation facility would take some of the load off of the facilities at Paragon and Enmore. He explained that Enmore was intended for patients who needed intensive care, and the new facility would allow for patients at Enmore who did not fit into that category to be transferred. Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strachan, says the National Insurance Scheme will be working as quickly as possible to process the expected influx that is, of unemployment claims, which will arise from the temporary closure of businesses during the 2-week lockdown. He was speaking to the media this morning during a Zoom meeting. Being mindful of the COVID-19 measures which the NIS has implemented to minimize contact, he says Barbadians can submit claims online or place them in the drop box at the NIS building.
Persons can submit their unemployment claims digitally, and so that we can avoid, in a sense, again, a physical presence within the National Insurance Office, as they've taken their own precautions, certainly for their staff, and that persons can submit online the declaration forms via email to employeeu3forms@bginis.gov.pb, or alternatively, they can drop them off in the drop box at the E. Humphrey Walker building, so that they can have the forms processed within the NIS as quickly as possible.
Mr. Strachan says people can still receive digital payments from the NIS should they wish to avoid long waits to change checks.
I want to reiterate that pensioners, or for the most part anybody who will access benefits from the NIS, that they can still submit their banking or credit union information to the NIS in order to ensure that they can help facilitate them not having to go to banks to access cash physically. It can be in their accounts. You don't have to wait. And so therefore the NIS is still very much open to receiving that information, certainly at this time, given that the banks and the credit unions will be operating on a limited basis. And therefore that too would allow, again, for persons not to be have to traverse to those institutions in order to cash checks.
The government is working feverishly to ensure medical equipment and pharmaceutical supplies on order arrive as quickly as possible. This assurance from Minister of Health and Wellness, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic, who says this includes exploring the idea of chartered flights.
But you must recognize that there are some restrictions in other parts of the world where we depend on our shipping lines, so that also has a part to play. But we are working feverishly, including the possibility of Barbados actually having some chartered flights to be able to get us our equipment here in a quick time.
Barbados Consul General to New York, Mackie Holder, is appealing to Barbadians to take the messages about COVID-19 seriously. It comes on the heels of news that 2 Barbadians who live in New York died within 24 hours of each other after contracting the virus. Mr. Holder says both were well loved in the Brooklyn community where they lived and worked. He says while not under official lockdown, New Yorkers are being strongly urged to stay at home, and he thinks Barbadians should do the same.
This is not a joke. This is horrendous. This is serious. Adhere to the protocols. Listen to what the government is saying. Take advice from the official sources. World Health Organization, which the government is following, and GIS. Stay home. Wash your hands regularly. Sanitize if you have to go. Sanitize everything, including your shoes. And practice social distancing. That is important. A sneeze can go 10 feet.
Now, regarding Barbadians in New York, Mr. Holder says the consulate received a few queries previously when there were flight disruptions, but since then, the consulate has been closed.
We would have closed the office last week. Before that, we went on short hours, very limited staff. And for those who might have to go into the office for some peculiar reason, I've arranged for them to be transported so that they do not have to use public transport. And I've been in touch with the associations. We have a standard conference using the technology every Monday night, just to update on things that are happening in Barbados.
Acknowledging the call for churches to close during the national shutdown has been a major topic of discussion for some church leaders. Independent Senator John Rogers has called on some of those leaders who object to exercise some reason at this time. He made the comment as the Senate passed the Emergency Management Amendment Bill and the Emergency Management COVID-19 Order 2020.
If we love the God we serve so much, and we love his people so much, anything that would put one of our people in danger, we ought to resist from. In fact, it was St. Paul in his Corinthian correspondence, I believe Senator Holder will help me with the chapter and verse, when confronted with the question of food offered to idols, St. Paul said, there's nothing wrong with it. But if doing that would cause one of your brothers or sisters to falter, it is better to desist from it.
In news from the region now, security officers in Antigua took firm action today enforcing social distancing at a church service in Bolans. It was cut short because it breached the limit of 25 people for all gatherings. Attorney General and Public Safety Minister Stedroy Benjamin confirmed the police move in to end the service. Meanwhile, one of the worshippers will be charged with battery on police after pushing one of the law enforcers. Police have also put an end to a beach party in Deep Bay after that event breached the guidelines on social distancing. The security forces are stepping up enforcement of social distancing regulations during a 14-day state of public emergency.